So in terms of how today will run, as I mentioned, we've got a really exciting panel here. I'm really privileged to be joined by the teams across the companies on the screen right now, including our own Chief of Staff, Maz, which I'm very pleased about. By a quick introduction to me, why am I here? Who on earth am I? My name's Natalie Izzard. I look after the partnerships team here at the Electric Car Scheme. I've been immersed in the world of employee benefits for kind of nearly 4 years now, having started working in kind of clinical psychology and health-related services, and I found myself very happily working in the world of electric cars, leasing, salary sacrifice. It's a very complicated world. Who knew? So I have a lot of respect for the HR decision makers and other colleagues on the call who are involved in making those really tricky decisions as to what they should be doing for their business and what direction they should be taking their business in. We're going to be talking a lot about what we think is going to be the big bets for 2025, what we've maybe learned, some mistakes that maybe have been made along the way, and some reflections on the past year as well. So without further ado, this is our panel. As I said, a really exciting lineup here. We've got Claire, Amy, Sean and Maz, and I'm going to let them introduce themselves and a little bit about their companies. And then we will talk kind of about the bigger picture and get into the meat of the discussion as we go. Do use the chat function, ask questions. We've got colleagues from other parts of the business here that can help support. And we will follow up with a recording for any colleagues that aren't able to attend today, and keep those introductions coming, and hopefully people can get to know each other a bit better today. So first off on the intros, I'm going to kick off with Claire Godfrey. Over to you, Claire.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Natalie. Hi, everybody. Thank you for joining today's session. I'm really excited to be part of the panel. So, my name is Claire Godfrey. I'm a business relationship manager here at Amber. So just a little bit more about Amber, if you've not heard of us before. Amber is an ESG B Corp certified benefit platform provider. We provide 2 bespoke platforms, one UK-based and another with global capabilities. We host and centralize all of your business's current benefits, as well as supporting you on the journey of creating a tailor-made suite of benefits that suit your business values and your objectives. Both the platforms are modernized with single sign-ons and bespoke link-outs to benefit landing pages where needed, as well as incorporating your internal policies and documents and aligning with, as I said, kind of your goals and objectives. As well as the platform and kind of the consultancy approach, we also then support with all of the education and engagement with all of your benefits and all of the kind of boring data reporting around all of those as well for you. So yeah, really excited to be on today's session. Thank you.
Thank you, Claire. Over to Amy.
Hi everyone, thanks for joining. So my name's Amy and I work at Enjoy Benefits, and I have done so for the past 6 years. We've been offering our services for over 20 years now. We specialise in salary sacrifices, but we do a lot of benefits and outsource them to lovely companies like the Electric Car Scheme. My role here at the business is to onboard all of our clients and then continue that relationship as your benefits offering grows. Again, we host things on our platform and can offer additional services out.
Thank you, Amy. And Sean.
Good morning. Good afternoon now, I guess. Nice to meet everybody. Thank you all for joining. I'm Sean Phillips, Strategic Partnerships Director here at Illumity. Illumity, we're a leading sort of boutique consultancy, I guess. We specialise in having in-depth relationships with our clients and assisting them across everything when it comes to employee benefits. So whether that be core benefits, as I would call them, pensions, risk, healthcare, and now technology, we can now support people on. Also the wider employee benefits landscape. So whether that's partnering with people like Amy at Enjoy Benefits and implementing salary sacrifices, or the Electric Car Scheme, even looking at things now like reproductive health, ESG and culture, we're here to be sort of that sounding board and sort of advice for clients, anything in the employee benefit space. One of the unique things we have here at Illumity is we have a really strong financial planning and wealth management arm of our business. So if any of our clients, employees need support with wider advice, then we're here to do that. But yeah, really looking forward to being part of today's panel and the discussion points we've got.
Thanks, Sean. And Maz.
Well, hello, everyone. Thank you so much for having me here today. I'm Maz, the Chief of Staff at ACS. We offer a salary sacrifice scheme for electric vehicles, and of course, net zero being our mission as well. I oversee the HR function and provide in-house legal advice. My journey.
Oh, you've got on mute, Maz.
Oh, hello. Could you guys hear me the entire time?
You're back now, yeah. We got your journey and then you got cut off.
All right, okay. For some reason, it just put me on mute and told me to stop talking.
Don't take it personally.
Yeah. So yes, I oversee the HR function and provide in-house legal advice as well. And my journey has been a bit diverse, I guess. I started as a solicitor at Allen Overy and moved on to the challenging world of startups. So along the way, loved my way into the people side, got CIPD qualified a couple of years ago, and here I am.
Fab, thank you. Hopefully a really diverse range of perspectives here to talk about, what we think is going to happen and those reflections I mentioned. So why are we here? The big question. So we know that, and I'm sure everyone on here felt this incredibly acutely, 2024 was pretty turbulent, whether that was socio-politically, economically, and I think we as leaders or in HR or in consultative roles in this space we're being kind of asked, what do I do? Our employees were kind of in this position where they suddenly were feeling a bit lost without, a paddle as such, right? The demands of cost of living haven't reduced significantly. I think I was saying everyone uses that kind of yardstick as to how much a pot of instant coffee is, don't they? And I know that my favorite one's gone up to £7, which I think has literally made me rethink all my life decisions. So we know that people are feeling that very kind of hardly in their wallets, right? And the way I think about this is, employees can't necessarily phone up their, utilities companies or their landlord and say, I'm struggling. They look to their employers to help fill those gaps, right? If they are struggling financially. And that's where they think that they can get help. So in our roles, we're suddenly in a position where we're having lots of conversations about salary, package, flexibility, and how an employer can really support there, which is a difficult place to be in. Employee expectations are increasing massively. There was a really interesting survey done by Benefex where they found that 20% of employees rated their benefit experience as excellent, compared to 64% of employers who rated their employee experience as excellent. We don't know why that is, right? It could be that expectations are really high. We have a growing, Gen Z and millennial workforce. What is it that they're after? Or is it that there's a disconnect between the services that we're providing as employers and how they're being received? So we're going to talk about some of this stuff today, which I'm really excited about. So the first thing I was going to kind of throw over to the panel was talk a little bit about upcoming trends. And so the first question here is around that point around a diverse workforce. So, we know suddenly the workforce is looking very different. We've got a lot of maybe mothers who are now working longer than they maybe would have done previously because employers are more set up to support there. We've obviously got this growing Gen Z workforce who have, their own needs and expectations. So what I would like to do is over to the panel. Would be really interested to see maybe from the team at Amber or Amy, if you've been, in your company for a while, how you see benefits evolving and how you've seen that playing out over the past couple of years. So over to the panel on that one. Feel free to kick off.
Okay, yeah, I think there's a few strands to this question. I don't think it's a clear-cut answer. I think I would say from an Amber's perspective and from the conversation we've had, I would kind of look at three kind of groups within the workforce, and those, as you said, Natalie, is working parents. We have seen a huge increase in employers seeking kind of salary sacrifice workplace nursery schemes, but not just to help parents save money on their childcare, but also to allow particularly working mums to come back to work and not have to go back part-time or perhaps even leave that role or take potentially a demotion. So that's a really big area that we have definitely seen in the last 18 months or so, and something that we've kind of worked with some new partners to support that, most definitely. I think maybe one that's not mentioned as much is the older workforce. We are seeing a really big kind of increase, a lot more conversations about the workforce getting older, you know, the pension age, and some people actually do like to work up to 70, and we're seeing that more and more in conversations, and that's kind of then ricocheting off onto, you know, your critical illness plans, your group income protection, and actually do we want to increase those policy ages up to 70? So there's that element as well. And then, you know, things about, I'm sure Sean will probably have more information on this than I do, but around kind of pension, education, you know, the will writing and kind of that kind of later life planning. And then the other kind of group there is, as you said as well, kind of that younger Gen Z, millennial. They're very focused on ESG, saving the planet, which is fantastic. So they are a lot more conscious of, actually, yes, my employer does provide me with these benefits, but what's the impact to the planet on those? And that's where things like electric cars come in, or even something really outside the box that we're seeing more and more is there's a benefit provider out there that allows an employee to take a share of a solar farm, and then that then can go back into their utility bills. And those are just kind of the outside the box ESG focused benefits that we're seeing more and more kind of coming through. So yeah, I think maybe the three areas there are the working parents, the older workforce, and then the younger kind of ESG focused workforce, I would say. Yeah.
Before we throw over to Sean to talk a bit about this, that kind of financial element, Amy, is there anything you would add from your experience?
I would just echo everything that has come from Amber. So the workplace nursery scheme especially, we've seen increase in popularity massively since the childcare voucher scheme closed in 2018. Currently, it's now really one of the only things companies can do to support their working parents going back to work. And a lot of the time, it's the difference between going back to work full-time or just part-time, with the average nursery fee being around £1,800 a month. It's a really chunky figure. So if you can support staff with something like the workplace nursery scheme, that's always really welcomed by employees. On the Gen Z side, I think I can add, just because I am Gen Z and I'm part of that workforce that maybe is really focusing on benefits. A few of my friends, when they're looking for roles, it's not just the salary that people look at anymore. It's, can you work from home? Is there flexi time? What sort of benefits are being offered? Is there a cash plan? And I think previously that wasn't so much people's sole focus. It was, can I commute to work? Is it near where I live? What's the pension like? And now people are placing a lot more emphasis on different things that make up a job offer. So if companies can get things on there on the ads for their jobs, like a workplace nursery, like salary sacrifice, PMI, it makes the roles really attractive to all people, but especially I think Gen Z, coming from that place myself.
Yeah. Sean, from a finance perspective, I know that's a very big statement, but you know, I know that yourselves and the Illumity team do specialize in some of that. It'd be interesting to see, are those conversations evolving, or are there things that have stayed consistent that's just as valuable?
Yeah, definitely seeing a change in a trend towards supporting a multi-generational workforce with financial well-being in particular. I think things like pensions historically have been aimed, just the support has been towards people approaching retirement. How can we help them, and those types of things. But across the generations now, people are looking for pension support. Actually, am I in the appropriate fund? Does the default fund my organisation have put me for hit my own personal ESG goals around, you know, where is that money, my pension money, being invested in a monthly basis? And different generations have got different challenges. The most important thing, you know, as later in your career, will be towards your pension and retirement planning. But actually, earlier in your career, how can an employer help an employee with some of the early stage financial advice around buying a home for the first time, or how to get a mortgage? What sort of things does my credit need to be? Can there be a workplace ISA or similar support put in place? So we're seeing a lot more interest from employers looking for supports around financial coaching, financial well-being across different generations within the workforce. And it can be hugely impactful. Giving someone appropriate pension advice earlier in their career can make the difference between retiring early and the standard retirement they have. So that's something that a lot of companies are thinking about at the moment.
I'd agree with you on that pension point. Like, I think when I first started working, I think I had friends who were opting out of their pension because they wanted more money in their paycheck to go out, Thirsty Thursday. And suddenly I feel like now, speaking to my younger sister and her friends, they're much more astute to the impact of that, much more financially aware.
Yeah.
Definitely.
I was looking at yesterday, I know it's really late in the time, but we're doing my partner's tax return and we were going through his pay slips, and I said, you're not paying into your pension. Do you know that? He's obviously come out in his employment, never gone back in. And I was like, what, like you're 28 years old, you need to start paying into a pension of some sort now. So I think as well, just having that open conversation around your employees and making them just aware of the benefits that they have and what they mean. I think that's really important too. So he'll be on Monday next week. He's speaking to payroll about going back into his pension.
Very good.
I don't think the pension companies do a great job, or haven't historically, about engaging a workforce and letting them understand easily
Exactly. Yeah.
what the effects of their contributions mean. What does a 5 and 3% contribution model mean for me at retirement? How does that relate to a standard of living? Unless you spend a little time or educated that. So a lot of companies, we're doing a lot of work now. Dan, our marketing director, spending a lot of time building portals and engagement tools so really can support and value a benefit where the employer is putting the most amount of money into. It's probably their most the benefit they'll spend the most amount of money on. So communication, I think, in that area is particularly important.
Good segue then to Maz. I think I'd be really interested to see, how this is actually playing out in practice in your role, right? You've kind of been seeing this in the kind of scale up and startup landscape, which I think is also quite a unique one. And so, talk to us about how you're finding these trends, or what are you hearing, on the ground for your employees?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely echo what everyone else has said as well, but I think there's also a massive increase in mental health and wellbeing. I think having access to mental health resources, counselling services, stress management programs, or even flexible work arrangements to reduce burnout as well. And of course, sustainability as a purpose-driven benefit. I think we mentioned it earlier that it's really, really important for employees to see that the company that they're joining aligns with their own values. And having those purpose-driven benefits and not just perks really reinforces that. And I think organizations also need to take into consideration that when you're making a commitment to a benefit, it does also really contribute towards your culture. So you have to think about what you want to stand for as well, whether it be offering volunteer time off or supporting green commute options. But I think there's a massive increase in that, and it's really important for it to be considered in the overall strategy for businesses.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah,
and I think a couple of you touched on ESG, which is a very present reality. I mean, for us in our role at Electric Car Scheme, in that that's we are essentially supporting businesses to launch a sustainable benefit. But how is the panel seeing sustainability translate in real time? I mean, I've seen, some of the feedback I've had is that some companies, it's still quite a tokenistic, model. They'll put someone in place who, alongside their day job, maybe is running point on trying to implement sustainability initiatives, but often it doesn't get much further than let's stop using the printer. So anybody on the panel want to take some comments on that? So sustainability specifically.
I guess with us being an ESG and B Corp provider, I think probably fair to say, yourselves at Tex, you may feel the same. I think when we were just before the pandemic, sustainability was high on the agenda. We then went into COVID and it kind of fell flat a little bit, and we
Mm.
saw that for a couple of years, but we're now coming out of that, and that is now coming back to the top of the agenda. You know, here at Amber, we created a ESG focused online shopping platform, which we launched just before COVID. And admittedly, yes, it didn't do as well because we were in a pandemic. But now we're coming to a point where actually, no, let's have a think. You know, yes, we might have a shopping platform, but you know, not to name and shame some retailers out there, but we know that there are some big chain names out there that perhaps aren't that good ESG focused. So it's having a look at actually that online shopping platform. Who are you working with? And I know with that Gen Z generation, that is a really big topic at the moment, and it is in the news. So it's supporting that area. And then I think it comes down to carbon, you know, the reports that a business can generate, and then how they can then put that into their goals and their objectives, and working alongside those. And then I know I touched on the last answer, but it's then also finding benefits that think outside the box when it comes to ESG, and then tying in nicely with saving money. So the utility bills, electric cars, there's so many benefits out there that support the ESG, and I think it's just finding the right one for that business and their goals and their objectives. But it's definitely, now we've come out of COVID, it's definitely coming back top of the agenda, definitely.
Interesting. Any other comments from the panel on that? I'd be interested to know if there was is there a particular, bit of advice or specific, model that you would tell people to look at if they wanted to make a big commitment in 2025, whether that's pensions, cars. Is there one thing that you would advise specifically people to look at?
Yeah, I don't mind taking that one. I don't think it's a specific that people are looking at. The trend that we've seen for the last 6 months, and I see continuing into 2025, is actually people reviewing their whole benefit strategy as a whole. I think things since COVID have really become more employees have asked more of their employers. So actually all the historic benefits that might have been there in place, the traditional pension scheme, group life insurance, and maybe some income protection, actually is that fit and right for our workforce now? So the trend I see is around actually people looking in a more holistic way. How can they obtain more value? How can they engage their workforce? And how can they do that for employee benefits? And I think the other trend we're seeing is employees wanting more choice. We do a lot of survey work for our employees, for employers, and normally one of the biggest trends that comes out of that is people want choice. Everybody wants something different. For everybody that wants more holiday, there's someone that wants more learning and development. For everybody that wants childcare, there's someone that's important in an electric vehicle. So some of the benefits that Amy's able to offer through Enjoy benefits and some of the platform providers, we're able to consult on that to make sure that benefit offering aligns with their people. So I think, to summarize, 2 big trends: actually looking at it fresh white piece of paper, and looking at it strategically around what the people want, and that bit around flexibility.
Maz or Amy, I think that's a really interesting point that Sean makes there around, like, you kind of end up in a world where you can't please everyone, which I think is, as an employer, is really difficult, because I've seen this firsthand. You'll survey the workforce and you'll have as many people who think you have the best benefits package on the planet as you have people that think it's lacking, right? So how do you navigate that, right? If you can't keep everyone happy, so what would you do? Big question, but any ideas?
I think Sean's point was really good about surveys. I've seen them work really well in the past, and it is about understanding what the employees want. We've seen so many times where people maybe implement benefits as a bit of a tick box exercise, and it just doesn't work when that happens. So I think understanding what your employees want helps as a starting point, and then from there, if you've got a good benefits provider, they'll consult with you and work well to get a package that pleases most people. It might not always please everyone, but I think we're in a market now where a lot of the time what people are looking for, there is routes and avenues to help support them with that, maybe as either a company paid one or at the least an employee opt-in benefit, where if it's not something as a business that you can provide maybe financially, that that gives them an option or a contact where they can, if they want to look at that themselves, and you're still really supporting your staff if you facilitate that for them. And like Claire said earlier, that's why these flexible benefit platforms work so well, and that's where we see the most engagement on benefits that employees, like a pick and mix, can pick and choose what's going to work well for them. And definitely, especially if you've got companies with different types of workforce, so maybe some minimum wage staff, some high earners, some who are office based, some might be in a factory or in retail. So again, it's also understanding what types of benefits your employees can access. We've had it previously where a company's launched lots of salary sacrifices, but all their staff are minimum wage retail workers. That's just not gonna, you're not going to see the engagement there. So it's to look at, okay, well, we can offer discounts, we can offer mortgage advice, financial support, health and well-being, counselling sessions, like Maz said earlier. And so I think understanding your employees is absolutely crucial within that.
Yeah.
Sorry.
I'm just gonna add a little point to that as well. I absolutely agree with everything Amy said, but I also think we have a lot of conversations around, I'll use a health cash plan as a prime example, is yes, you can tick the box, I hate that phrase, but a health cash plan. But within a health cash plan, you might also have gym memberships, you might have a 24-hour GP service or prescriptions, a mindful app. There's lots of additional services that may be within benefits that you already have. So it's also a case of understanding and peeling those layers back, and then even having them as separate benefits because they are benefits. So I think that's also something that employers can definitely start with, is seeing if you do have a health cash plan, does it have any additional services to it? Pull them out, shout about them, because that could, like I said, it could have a gym membership in there and it's not being utilised. So yeah, we see that quite a lot.
Yeah, good point. And Maz, how are you seeing this kind of materialise in real time? Because I know that Maz has recently conducted a bit of a review as to what we're doing internally. So yeah, Maz, how are you seeing this play out?
Yeah, I mean, I definitely think, echoing what Amy said earlier, you really have to take the time to listen to your employees and understand their needs. But I think we conducted a survey, and as you mentioned, Nat, you can never make everyone happy. However, you'll always see a trend, and it's making sure those trends are addressed and you're providing the benefit that is going to actually be utilized internally. But also I think it's really, really important that we kind of put accountability on ourselves as well, and make sure that we are educating and creating awareness within our teams. So we're taking the time to, if it's about sustainability, we are taking the time to educate employees about that and empower them to make much greener choices, and for them to understand what will benefit them just beyond the workspace as well.
Yeah, great point. The next thing I think I'd be really interested to hear this group's thoughts on is when it goes wrong. I think I've been to lots of these sessions or read, various white papers and all sorts where, it's like, these are all the things that you can do right. But I think you can learn just as much from when stuff doesn't go to plan, right? And, it could be that you've done everything right. You've researched your employee base, you've kind of asked the question, you've done a big marketplace review, you feel like you're going into that conversation armed with everything you need, but stuff can still go wrong or it can not land. So I'd be really interested to hear this group's thoughts on, have you seen schemes or initiatives or strategies that have just really not gone to plan? Maybe why that was, and maybe how that could have been avoided. If there's anyone that wants to go first.
I'm happy to go first. I think I can't emphasize enough how important it is to make sure your employees have a good understanding as to what the benefits actually are and what the offering is. Exactly like Claire said earlier, if you've got a cash plan, it's never just a cash plan. There's always an EAP, discounts in there. I think when it's not worked well for our clients is when we've launched something and there's been no communication, there's been no webinar or comms sent out to staff. And yeah, I just can't emphasize enough how important that is to make sure people really understand what they're offering. And also companies, HR, they put so much time in and effort into researching the benefits, finding what's going to work financially and for people. and then not to follow it up, it's almost like a crime. So yeah, I can't emphasize how important that is for people. And again, speaking to your provider, be really transparent with them that you need the support there. If you don't feel like you can do it in-house, get them to send the information out to your staff, or provide you with it at the minimum.
Yeah, and I also think it might seem obvious, but we have seen it in the past where you might want to launch Cycle to Work, but let's not launch it in winter, for example. Let's maybe go a little bit spring, summer, and use the outside. And so it also is thinking, when you do launch it, it's also quite a crucial part in launching a new benefit as well. So yeah, that's another area. But again, agree with everything Amy said. I think maybe on a more holistic approach to this question is that if you treat a benefit as a tick box, it's probably going to land flat. And that's where I know we said about if you did do research, and that is the key point there. But yeah, let's kind of avoid adding a benefit to tick a box, because it will most likely fall flat, really.
Not worth doing if it's not going to land. Sure.
Yeah.
No, I think if we're playing family fortunes, I think Amy got the top answer with communication. I think that is the main area where we see clients come down. But for us, what I spend a lot of time with is with new clients that are potentially unhappy with their current advisor, and where we've seen it sort of not go wrong, where we've seen it go wrong and not be fully maximised, is when things have just been renewed, whether that be the pension fund hasn't been reviewed annually, and actually the employees are paying that charge. The fund hasn't been reviewed, and actually all that money that people are working hard for is going into the wrong default fund. Whether that be private medical, the private medical hasn't been reviewed. Things like excesses haven't been looked at. So I think that's where I don't like to say where it's gone wrong, but I just think that attention to detail is very important at the moment, because costs for all these benefits are going up, and people are wanting to do more. So I guess that would be my insight on where it goes wrong. It's just that it's really taking some care and strategic view on what the benefits look like.
I mean, you'd be doing a comparison on every other thing you have in your own personal life, right? So, to your point, Sean, I would be checking to make sure that my insurance on my home was competitive. People should be doing the same with anything that they're paying subscriptions for professionally.
Definitely. We start most of our presentations with new clients around the effects of being in the appropriate fund and the appropriate charges can have on the individuals at retirement, and the amount of the tens of thousands or hundreds of thousands we can be looking at just by giving that attention to detail. Again, when we talk about salary sacrifice benefits, that's especially electric vehicles, the national insurance savings that can be created, either to the employee, a more cost-effective car solution, or for the to business to retain those national insurance savings and do other wellbeing initiatives with, whether that be private medical, whether that be on-site charging, however they choose to spend that money. So yeah,
that's a great point. Reinvest those national insurance savings from any salary sacrifice benefit into the company if you want to, right? People can do some really cool stuff there to support, and it might be that you can redirect it into an initiative that supports maybe your lower rate taxpayers who aren't accessing a car or don't want one, or whatever that is. Maz, how about from your experience, anything where you've gone toe curlingly, oh gosh, this has gone disastrously, or not?
Yeah, I think working in startups, what you realize is really embrace that rush culture at times. So that rush communication and poor communication, where you want to roll something out and it doesn't land well. I think it's ensuring you're taking the time to roll it out, but also rolling it out at the perfect timing, not Cycle to Work schemes in the middle of winter, because you're not going to get that interaction. But also I think there's sometimes there can be overemphasis on cost cutting when introducing a benefit, and I think as soon as you do that, you kind of lose your engagement level, because at that point the employees don't feel like the decision was made for them. It was a decision made for the business and not a benefit for them. So communication, how you communicate that to your team, it's really important, and I've seen that go wrong in the past. And also how that's followed through. If you have a complicated onboarding system, or you know, it's going to take ages for someone to be able to get that benefit. Again, you lose engagement through the process.
I've just got another point, and I don't know if anyone what everyone else's feedback is, but from when I've been, obviously we're salary sacrifice, and I think we're going to see a big increase in that within the next year or so. But just around the wording of salary sacrifice, I think the word sacrifice can sometimes sound like, what am I sacrificing? So I've seen a lot of people now using salary exchange when they're rolling this out to their team members. And I think the idea more that you're exchanging your salary for something positive sounds a lot better than you're sacrificing your salary for something. And so I've noticed that when we flip that wording in the rollout of some of our schemes, again, depending on what type of employees you have, it might be a bit more welcome than the word in salary sacrifice. If people aren't very familiar with it or comfortable with what sal-sac means, salary exchange might be a more beneficial word to use for your benefits rollout as well.
Yeah, that's a great tip, because as you say, the semantics, sacrifice sounds really scary, like we're going to do
Yeah.
like a pagan ritual with your income. Like,
Yeah.
We've had a question come through in the chat, which I feel like is quite timely with the kind of theme of communication. The age-old question of engagement. So, you know, how do we get that right? Sean, any ideas on engagement that you want to throw in? Or I'll hand over to Claire, who was nodding.
Well, I'll let Claire go, but yeah, I'd like to have a chance.
Over to you, Sean. You've got some. I'm sure you've got some good ideas.
Yeah, I think it depends what type of engagement. If you're talking purely benefits communication and engagement, it's always a good start to a good place to survey your employees and find out what they like, what they value, and what they understand they've got. I remember meeting with the CEO a couple of years ago, and he's like, well, we don't want to spend any more money on benefits because our employees don't value them. And then when we started talking around how they communicated, how the employees could access the benefits, it wasn't they didn't value them, they just didn't know about them. So it's always difficult depending on the company on how we'd up the engagement levels, but larger organizations are looking at flexible benefits, regular communication plans, looking at the workforce that you've got and looking at how the employees engage. It might be that you've got a lot of people working in manufacturing that don't have access to a laptop or things like that. So what could engagement look like? Could that be leaflets in the canteen? Could it be WhatsApp groups? Actually, let's have a look at these different channels of how we could engage our employees. So yeah, I think it's a right, back to the white paper again, I guess. Start again. What are the benefits you've got? What do employees value, and what are the routes to communicate with these people?
That's a really good point you've pulled out there as well, around, I think, because I've definitely been guilty of this. Like, sometimes you can get very excited as head office, right? And be like, we've got this amazing, platform that's mobile enabled and everyone can access it through Slack, and it's really amazing, which is great for, maybe 60% of your workforce. And then it's like, oh wait, we have got this other 40% who they could be in vans all day, or they don't use a laptop for work. And actually, I think that's a group of people that, quite often will probably be just as engaged as all of this stuff. They might not be wanting the, the free fruit in the office or the lunch on a Wednesday or whatever, but, whereas I love all that stuff, but there's the other stuff that's going to really resonate with them. So yeah, Sean, great point. Claire, did you have something you wanted to add?
Yeah, just to add to that, as well as, I think, don't be afraid to speak to your current benefit providers or your platform provider, because 9 times out of 10, they can support, whether that's just with collateral or with a webinar or with those posters or those flyers. I think sometimes, especially for smaller SME clients, there might be a bit of, they're not going to want to do that, we're a bit too small. But please ask your benefit providers. Here at Amber, we do webinars. We can do that on one benefit, or we can do it for all of them, or we can actually go directly to the providers themselves and work with them. And they 9 times out of 10 have a marketing hub, or they have pre-recorded webinars, or actually they might have a link and actually your employees can choose to join, like we are doing today. So yeah, I would definitely advise, ask your benefit partner if they can support and what they can provide you, because I'm pretty certain they would have something that they can provide to get you started.
Yeah.
I also think, I know you mentioned, Natalie, about people sat in vans all day, people that maybe webinars aren't going to work for, or a newsletter they're not going to look at. I found with clients that those type of employees, if depends how far you're wanting to push the scheme, but benefit days. So give them a few hours off from their normal work, if you're office based, get them on site, and actually having your providers there to in person talk to them about it. I've always had really good feedback and engagement from that as well.
Yeah.
And just to, I guess, add on that, I think it's also really great to gather feedback and improve. So if you've launched a benefit, you can always get the employees' feedback and be able to then personalize that benefit to them even more following the feedback.
Yeah, love that. For the kind of the last section of today, the thing I wanted to talk about was like this concept of like big bets. Like what do we think's coming? Like, I actually, Sean and I had a really interesting conversation about the kind of female fertility and health initiatives and things like that. And I think Claire also mentioned, that kind of care support for older adults. And there's lots of there's some cool tech or cool services that I've seen kind of crop up at varying different events and things like that over the past 6 months. So I'd be really interested to hear kind of the big bet and any advice you'd give to people before we do the Q&A. So Sean, you're top of my screen. Would you like to kick off big bet?
Oh, big bet. I think I've got a few. I think few ones will be around technology, comms, and those types of things. But the big thing for us will be around financial well-being. I think that is. I think that's going to continue to grow, and that is across, as I mentioned earlier, across all the different generations, and supporting employees, whether they're buying their first home, looking to get a mortgage, looking at their pension, looking to support their children, all sorts of wills, estate planning. All these things are really important, and companies making sure that their pension is fit and appropriate for their workforce moving forward. So that would be my big bet for 25, is around financial well-being and a specific pension focus, I think.
Yeah, great. So everyone here, look at your pensions and speak to Sean if you're not sure. Claire, how about you?
I'd say I have two, actually. Might be a bit greedy, but I have two. One very similar to Sean is to financial well-being. We know the cost of living crisis is going to continue, but I think maybe a little bit further looking at that wider picture is protection benefits. And these are benefits like the group income protection, the critical illness and life insurance. And they can sometimes seem a bit boring or something that we hope an employee actually never needs that benefit, but actually that provides such fantastic financial protection for them and their family. And I think that will be quite a big topic for 2025. And then kind of separate to that is kind of preventative well-being. So these are like the well-being benefits that kind of prevent ill health before it gets to a point of long absence from work. So online physio, for example, EAP, or even something as small as flu vouchers and eye care vouchers. So those type of kind of preventative well-being, I think will be a big topic. And then that does tie in with kind of medical inflation and the PMI and how we can kind of support employees before they get to that point of their journey. So yeah, for me, it's probably those two, the financial well-being and the preventative well-being.
Yeah, preventative well-being is an important one, but I can imagine one that people don't like to think about. It's like you don't want to think about the worst case scenario, right? But I remember like when I bought my flat and they were saying, well, you need to get life insurance. And I was like, not me, like surely not. I'm too young and adorable for that. I did do it. I think that was the way to give me a mortgage.
I do think that people like Martin Lewis are bringing these topics more into the media, and they are playing more on the younger generation. I've just become a mum. I say just, she's 2, but so for me, that's a big step in my life where actually I think, I do really need to think of those things and my family. So I think that would be quite a big topic for 2025.
Amy, big bets.
Yes, so I don't know if this is a bit biased, but I think salary sacrifice, we're just going to see them, or salary exchange, see them, the use of them increase as we go into 2025, especially with the NI increase from April. I think we're going to be seeing employers looking for ways to save some additional money from that, the electric car scheme. So yeah, I think Sal Sac is going to continue to increase throughout 2025, placing emphasis on the workplace nursery scheme, because that's my favourite benefit that we offer here at EB, which allows parents to save tax and NI on the full cost of their nursery fee. So the savings there can be £5,000, £6,000, £7,000, £8,000, £9,000 a year. So again, I think we're going to see a lot of companies looking to implement that as a really sticky benefit and a good recruitment tool as well.
Yeah, and that links really well to that point you made earlier around like keeping, there's lots of businesses that have lots of incredibly talented, women and young mums in, and but also the dads, right? Because the dads will need the support, and we want to make sure that you're keeping everybody, parents or otherwise, contributing to your business strategy. We know it's a lot more expensive to re-recruit, and you don't want tired, disengaged workforces. So anything you can do to take the pressure off new parents and stuff like that is a great idea, in my opinion.
Definitely.
Maz, big bet.
I think we'll just continue on seeing the trend that we did in 2024, which is more personalized and just value-driven packages, whether it be sustainability, which is a huge topic at the moment, or more support for new parents, or just parents in general. I think having that personalized, holistic view on benefits, that trend is going to continue. Obviously, having, I think, looking at it from a scalable perspective, technology is going to play a huge part in that as well. And I guess my advice would be really investing in flexible, inclusive, and purpose-driven benefits that really attract top talent, and you can be able to retain them as well.
I agree. Now's the time, if anybody, I know there's been some questions throughout the session in the chat, but if anybody has a question, you're also more than welcome to raise your hand on mute if you'd prefer. If not, I would say while you're thinking about it, we will be signposting to everyone that's been on the panel today. So it might be that you have a question that's a bit more specific that you'd prefer to ask privately. George has asked about finding more information on workplace nursery schemes. We'll give Amy your details and you'll be able to have a chat, so she'll reach out. But what I would say is, anybody that's been on the session today, like I think the key takeaways that I've kind of picked up here is, thinking about that the financial pressure and the ongoing kind of awareness and maybe increased awareness that employees have across the book that I think Sean was speaking to. Some really nice points made by I think all the panel around, do people even know where the benefits are? Are they digging around in SharePoint, Google Drive, other providers available, trying to find that information? Is it hidden away? Are people being given the kind of input that they need? Are you surveying your staff? Are you getting those insights from people? If no one's responding to the surveys, find out why. Is it that actually you need to do a focus group, do a lunch and learn, do anonymous box? Is it that people aren't in their inboxes and don't want to fill in a form? There'll be lots of ways to get that information. I think Claire made a really good point. Ask your provider, ask your suppliers. Something we do at the Electric Car Scheme is that, we'll run a webinar, we'll take cars to your office, and lots of other providers will do the same thing if you ask the question. And keep listening to your employees, I think, is the main one. And I think with that, I don't think we've got any questions. So, late entrant from Lucy, I love it. A way to map benefits. So you might have an EAP, but also have another provider that offers it. I imagine your benefit provider would help you do that, but I'm not one of those. So has anybody got any insight on mapping benefits, bringing all those things together?
I'm going to be a bit biased here, because we are a platform provider. So that could be an option, is to look at a platform that centralizes all of your benefits, and all of, not just kind of the second party that you're working with, but also your internal benefits, whether that is the kind of bonuses or the free fruit or, dress down Fridays, those types of things. So, sometimes a portal or a little hub can be a fantastic way to centralize everything and put all the tools in one place. So that's easy access for not only you as a HR manager, but also for employees as well. And if you do end up having 2 AAPs, which we do find quite common, we can showcase both. And then that's just 2 paths that are showcased on a platform or a hub for your employees.
Makes sense. Fab. So I think on that note, I would say we're going to extend our thanks kind of on behalf of the Electric Car Scheme to our amazing panel. This is a really complicated world, and I know that people feel the pain quite acutely of this and getting it right, and it's very high pressure, and lots of people, you've got your whole business looking at you going, well, what's the plan? And that can be quite a scary place to be in. And what I would say is, everyone on the panel here today, I'm sure will be more than happy to be contacted, whether that's on, LinkedIn or check out their sites. We'll share some information about them afterwards. Ask the question. I can attest to everyone here being incredibly helpful and knowledgeable. If you have any questions about the Electric Car Scheme, you can also reach out to us. So you can email partnerships@electriccarscheme.com or go on our website if you want to